All right, one last look at your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center. A couple accidents to report, one at I-77 and Percival Road, another one at Park Lane and O'Neill Court, and then one more at Pisgah Church and Highway 1. Today, high of 87 with a little bit of cloud. Tomorrow, high of 90 with plenty of sunshine. Then Wednesday, a mix of clouds and sunshine with a high of 92. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you. Oh, boy, here we go. This is going to be a fun day. Been listening to Elijah and Preston all morning. The people are not happy, Jack, and I, quite frankly, don't blame them. We got a lot to unpack here. First of all, how are you this morning, and how is Columbia?
Which Columbia?
The other Columbia, Como.
I'm kidding, man. I'm good, man. It's good to be talking with you here again. I know we'll get into a lot of this game, a lot to break down, and hopefully get a lot of callers here, a lot of good reactions this morning. But, yeah, I got back from Como yesterday evening just in time for, literally 4:59 for the Beamer teleconference. I'm like, all right, shoot. I got to get inside. I was at my parents' house, so I went to the backyard and just did the teleconference there. But, Como was good. It was, again, my opinion has not changed on it. It's still very Big 12 feel to me. We went out Friday night to the downtown area, myself, photographer, and another writer, and it just was not packed at all. It was kind of dead, honestly. And, you don't expect that. You would never see that out at 5 Points or any of these other parts of those Main Street areas and these other SEC towns. But, I mean, the game was whatever. And, some good food. And, just glad to be back home now. Yeah, unfortunately, you come home with not the most fun things to talk or write about. Given South Carolina falling to 0-2 in conference play as they fall to Missouri 29-20 on Saturday. I did almost get my score prediction right. I was off by 1 point. I had Missouri winning 28-20, so I think I got the closest of anybody in our staff picks, at least in terms of final score. Hey, and they got the 20 points. So I know a lot of people, I know everyone in our comments on our message boards were like, "Oh, how come so many of you guys have South Carolina getting the 20 points?" Well, we were right on that. We just know. We just have that sixth sense.
And much like we said about 17 points not being good enough, well, it turns out 20 points was also not good enough. Oh, man, a lot to unpack. As always, though, it is 9 o'clock, and we'll kick things off with a little bit of a positive, that being our Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Again, if you've been living under a rock for the past 48 hours, Carolina did indeed fall to the Missouri Tigers and the other Columbia. And they lose the Mayor's Cup, too. The Mayor's Cup is now back in the possession of Eli Drinkwitz and the Missouri Tigers. 29-20 on Saturday night. And this game, again, there's so many layers to this that we're going to talk about over the course of the show. But somehow, through as ugly of a game as this was, Carolina still had multiple opportunities in the fourth quarter with the ball to take the lead, and unfortunately, they weren't able to do that.
It's just crazy that this game was as close as it was. I mean, in no way should it have been this close at all. Like you said, Tyler. I mean, it was crazy. South Carolina had the lead going into the fourth quarter, and we'll get into all the mistakes and stuff and what just went wrong in this game. But the point being, Missouri is a good football team. I think we need to put that out there first and foremost. They're a good football team. They can run the ball really, really well. Ahmad Hardy might be the best transfer portal pickup of the cycle of any team. I mean, he is really, really good. And also, Jamal Roberts is a really nice complimentary back. So Missouri might have the best backfield in the SEC. Now, all that to be said, South Carolina's they should have probably won this game. Now, I was about to say they're a good football team, but my stance on South Carolina is they can be a good team. They just make way too many mistakes. That's kind of what it comes down to. They shot themselves in the foot over and over and over again in this game. It's like, dude, they would take one step forward, two steps back. You know, every single time something good would happen, something bad would follow after. And that's on them. They got to be better because they really should have won this game, in my opinion. They had every right to do so, and it should not have come down to all these mistakes they made.
Well, and now you find yourself behind the eight ball. And look, there's a lot of time this week and going forward to kind of look ahead to what the rest of the season is going to look like. But we talked about it ad nauseum in the offseason, that the way your schedule sets up, your first 5 games are a whole lot easier than your last 5 games. Now, we didn't know what Missouri was going to be, but given what they've been the past couple of years, you assumed that was going to be a tough game. And we even said, hey, you know, maybe you go to Como and you lose that game, you still have an opportunity to start maybe 4-1 before you get into the meat of your schedule. But after losing to Vanderbilt last week, we said your back was up against the wall a little bit because now you're in a position where you're 0-2 in conference play and you haven't even gotten to the toughest part of your schedule. So, you know, I hate to say you're teetering on the edge only 4 games in, but that's what it kind of feels like. This was very much a must-win scenario for Carolina, and as bad as they played, again, they were in position to still win the game if they were just able to put together one good drive in the fourth quarter. But in total, they ran 10 plays in the fourth quarter, got a total of 9 yards, and had 2 3-and-outs and 1 4-and-out.
They got the ball back with 6 minutes to go and just did nothing. And when they needed to get a stop, like, oh, okay, here's the other thing. You know, let's get some of this good out of the way because
Sure.
There's a lot more bad in this game. The defense did make some stops when they needed to. All right, let's give a little bit of credit where it is due. The defense did get some early stops in the first half where they forced some field goals deep in the red zone. Again, wasn't perfect throughout the night. They did give up a 99-yard drive, had a lot of silly mistakes throughout the game with penalties and all that stuff. But I mean, the defense gave you some chances to go do something on offense. And, you know, I think the offense was – I think this was probably their best game so far this season. I know everyone likes to go after Mike Shula for whatever reason and go after him. Maybe it's the cool thing to do since, you know, everyone else is doing it, so I should do it too. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think Mike Shula actually called a pretty good game on Saturday, probably his best of the season. I honestly think he was the least of the issues in this game. And I know that might be a hot take to some people, but again, you got to watch the game for what it was. He was getting creative. Offense was doing some good things. It's no accident that Lenore Sellers threw for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns in this game.
Yeah, I wasn't overly offended by what Mike Shula did. The one thing that is getting brought up a lot so far this morning is the situation where they are on Missouri's 2-yard line. They're leading 14-12 at that point in time. And I'm very split on this, right? Because one part of me is like, well, you haven't been able to run the ball the entire game, so what makes you think you're going to be able to get those 2 yards? So going, you know, play action to at least try something that has been working for you, I get. But at the same time, it's like, well, because the rushing yards, which we'll get to in a moment, are in the negative because of the sacks that were taken. You did actually get some positive rushing yards, just didn't net out that way at the end of the game. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, try 4 run plays from the 2-yard line. At least one of those has to work, right? But at the same time, I'm not completely against trying a play action to at least deceive a defense that thinks you are going to run the ball in that scenario. And again, Sellers took the sack. Rasul Faison blew the block. A lot of things went wrong on that play. But for the most part, I didn't have a problem with most of the game that Mike Shula called compared to some of the other conversations we've had about him through the first couple weeks of the season.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on that first and goal play. Do I think it was a bad play call? No. I think it was a good play to run. However, I say that I would not have run it right there. That's a good play to run. Maybe if it's 3rd and goal, 4th and goal, and you need to get into the end zone on this play, and you're still at the 2-3 yard line, I would run it then. That would not be the first play I would run right after a 40-plus yard pass from Lenore Sellers. And I get it. The running attack was not good, but the play was there. Let's make that clear. The play was there.
Sure.
A few things went wrong. You mentioned it. Rasul Faison did not get a block. Quite frankly, we've seen the clip by now. I genuinely do not know what the guy was doing. I mean, he's 6 foot, 220 pounds, and you're diving. You're literally just falling to the ground. I get he was going for his legs, but it was a piss poor attempt of going down. I mean, he just all the defender had to do that made the sack, by the way, literally just walked right over him and got in. Do we think Rocket Sanders would have made a block like that? Did something like that? No. Rocket Sanders would have at least tried putting 2 hands on him. And that's maybe all you need, Tyler, is just to put 2 hands on him, hold him for enough time, and then Lenore's, which the other thing is Lenore's, I think, probably dropped back way too far to a point where it's like, dude, just get rid of the ball. Get rid of the ball. I'm sure people were screaming at their TVs thinking that. In that situation, I think you just got to, get a better block. And you had Jordan Dingle open over the middle. I know people are saying, oh, well, he was covered up a few seconds later, but he was open for a good – there was a pocket there for a second to throw to. And if Lenore's just – I don't know if he just didn't see it or something, but in that scenario, man, the play was there. And I think everyone would be like, oh, my God, that's the best play ever if they had just executed it the way it should have been.
You're right. The design was drawn up the way you needed it to, and you had your opportunity there. And goodness, I would have much rather taken Rasul Faison getting blown up on that play, knocked on his butt. That could have bought Sellers at least maybe half a more second because, and yes, you have Beamer, Sellers, they both said after the game, hey, that ball needed to be thrown away. But, when you only have half a second to process and a guy's in your face, that's a lot. That's a lot going on right there. And, again, that's hopefully a teachable moment for Lenore Sellers. But just one of the many things that went wrong for South Carolina on Saturday night. And, again, when you think about the fact that at that point in time, instead of getting a touchdown from the 2-yard line, you got a field goal, put yourself up 17-12, how much more valuable could those 4 points have been later in the game? Tremendously, obviously, because after that, you got one more field goal, and then that was it. And you were really lucky to get in field goal range for that one because you were 3rd and 37, and Sellers did uncork a great pass to Nick Harbor that got it down to at least 4th and, 3 or 4, I think, at that point in time, that allowed William Joyce to get the field goal. It just a mess of a game on all fronts.
And don't forget, there's one other sequence where Carolina left a ton of points on the board in this game. Not just the 1st and goal debacle that went on, but you had way earlier in this game, before there was even any score, Lenore Sellers missed Mazeo Bennett on a wide open play. That was a busted coverage on Missouri's secondary. Now, I know people are like, oh, well, Mazeo's got to catch that ball. I'm sorry. You should not. If you're a wide receiver and you're left that open, you should not have to dive on that pass. I mean, the ball was just not where it needed to be. Lenore's has got to make a better throw there. And if he does, we're talking about a wide open touchdown to Bennett, like we saw a few times last year where Mazeo would get wide open. And he hasn't really made much of an impact this year, but that was his play to make an impact. And Lenore's just missed the throw right there. And you leave at least 14 points on the board right there. I don't know if I would say 21 because when you talk about the 3rd and 37, I mean, you were at the 23 at best.
Sure.
I don't know if you're getting into the end zone, but you're at least leaving 14 points on the board with the sack on 1st and goal and then Mazeo getting missed on the potential touchdown.
A lot of what could have been for South Carolina on Saturday. We'll get into the specifics, including how many missed tackles on Saturday. We'll get into that next. Also, let you hear some of Beamer's thoughts as well as the extra point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher rolls along on your Reaction Monday. Give us a call or text at 803-404-6100 here on The Game. You good here for AAA?
Uh-huh. I got my timer set up, so ready to go whenever you tell me. Everyone knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with their guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're hard to beat when you need a new system, and there may come that point where you do need a new system installation, whether it's your heating or cooling system with the air conditioning unit, or maybe you just need an electrical repair. And that brings me to my next point. Did you know they also have great deals for repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're strapped for cash, AAA Heating and Air can help you out. They'll get your repairs done with payment options for up to 12 months and no credit check required. So if you're the homeowner, all you need is a valid bank account. That's it. That's all you need. So don't wait. Call AAA Heating and Air today and get your comfort back on track. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Reaction Monday. Unfortunately, breaking down the second straight loss for the Gamecocks, 29-20 at the hands of the Missouri Tigers in Como over the weekend. We want your thoughts as well. 803-404-6100 Firehouse Subs text line, as well as the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. We'll go out to Vern for our first call of the morning. Vern, appreciate you making your call. What's up?
Everybody got eyes. They see things through their own eyes. I was at the game. I saw that long pass of L.A. Sellers through to Bennett Jr.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he should have caught that ball. He should have caught that. He knew they practiced together. He knew that ball would go to the sideline. That's where L.A. Sellers threw it to the sideline like they practiced. I knew that the way they practiced it. Because when I used to play football, the coach always tell us, when you go out there, you throw the ball to the sideline and stuff, everything like that. Now, I'm not saying his name's Jack. You know, every man got their own eyesight. That ball should have been caught by Bennett. Bennett Jr. should have caught that ball. You know, that's my opinion, you know, and something like that. And I'm not going to tell him, you know, just like he's a man just like me. But anyway, the problem is not the quarterback, neither the wide receiver. You know what the problem is with Carolina, why they're losing? Because I'm going to say it while I'm on the phone with you. The reason they're losing is something like that. Our head coach cannot be scared. Offensive coordinator cannot be scared. And a defensive coordinator. I look at those coaches from Carolina. Beeman is scared. Shula is scared. And White is scared. They'll never win like that. You all be blessed. I'm gone. Thank you.
I appreciate the call there, Vern. 803-404-6100. So I'm literally rewatching the play right now of the Mazio Bennett where he laid out to catch it. And, like, you can make strong arguments both ways, all right? So there is obviously the fact that the ball was out in front of him where he did have to dive for it, and I think a lot of people lean towards, okay, well, if you have to dive for it, that means the ball was not thrown perfectly. But at the same time, Sellers did also have pressure in his face. Like, there was a dude, I think it was a delayed blitz from the linebacker that, you know, he's basically right there in his face as he's letting go of that ball. So, you know, it's not always going to be perfect. And I don't know if Sellers didn't go through his full motion of throwing the ball because the guy with it was in his face or whatever it may be. So you can make a fair argument on both sides, and I don't think you're wrong either way, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. I mean, look, I think I'm still standing on what I said earlier. Like, if you have to dive for that type of pass when you're wide open, that it's not necessarily all. It should not be all on Mazio. Part of it needs to be on Sellers. Like, yes, he had a defender in his face, but you know there was I saw this yesterday. Coincidentally, just going back to Columbia to Charlotte, and it was like a highlight from Missouri, South Carolina, like 3-4 years ago. You remember Connor Bajlak, whatever his last name was?
Yep.
He had a similar situation just like this in this game. I think Beamer's first year, maybe 2021, where he's got a defender in his face, but he's got a guy wide open downfield where South Carolina's defense was just not catching up to him. He gets hit as he throws, and the ball's perfectly thrown. It goes right to the receiver, touchdown. I see the same thing here where it's like you had him wide open, and maybe Sellers or South Carolina wasn't expecting Mazio to be wide open because I think at that point in the game, you just didn't realize how weak Missouri's secondary is because they really struggled in this game for sure of all the things Missouri had going wrong. But the point is, I think the pass, you know, you can look at it, it should have been caught, but also it needed to be a better throw. Mazio should not have to dive for that ball.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Should be a walk-in touchdown. And even if he dove, I mean, there's no guarantee South Carolina gets into the end zone after that. So,
yeah,
you know, you just have to be a better throw on it.
Regardless, a missed opportunity nonetheless, one that South Carolina obviously wants back there. Same thing can be said about all the missed tackles, which is something Beamer talked about after the game on Saturday.
Yeah, just really, really, really disappointing. I mean, we've said it all week. You got to get 11 hats to the ball on this guy and tackle him and to, you know, give them credit. I mean, when you run for 285, you run for 285, but a lot of those are because of, you know, missed tackles or losing leverage or whatever it might be. So all 11, we all 11 got to get there.
So Pro Football Focus counts up missed tackles after every single game. They counted 10 against Vanderbilt, which I think most people thought probably sounded about right. I think they might have been a little generous with South Carolina on 16 because, my goodness, the Jamal Roberts touchdown run looked like there was about 16 missed tackles on that one play alone because he was just kind of in the middle of the pile, then he squirts out and runs and scores there, regardless of what the number was. An awful, and I mean awful, day tackling for South Carolina on Saturday.
The tackling was it was bad. It was bad. I can't get that Ahmad Hardy touchdown run out of my head where he's literally on his back. Like his back is turned towards the end zone. He's like in a swarm of defenders. And for whatever reason, I don't know what happened there, but just he breaks out of it, and credit where it's due. He's a really good running back, like I said earlier at the beginning of the show. Him and Jamal Roberts, probably the two toughest running backs to tackle. That said, I think I don't even know, man. Just some of the angles they took were okay. Like I remember that one at the end, which was the game-winning touchdown for Missouri in this game. Peyton Williams took a great angle at Jamal Roberts, but he just like lunged at him, dove at his his knees, and he was able to break off of it. And then you see Gerald Kilgore had a good game. He had the interception, really nice play, helped South Carolina out a lot in that situation. A little bit of a turning point early on in that game, but I question the effort on that tackle attempt where he kind of just, he had him at like the 6-7 yard line. He just puts a shoulder into him.
Yeah.
What happened to wrapping up? What happened to getting all 11 hats to the ball? I didn't see that consistently in this game. And, I'm sure there were other sequences where South Carolina's tackling effort just wasn't great. But, yeah, it wasn't a good night for Clayton White's defense. And this is the second week in a row now we're talking about the missed tackles, and there were 16 of them in this game.
And that's my thing is, last week it was what it was against Vanderbilt. And we knew going in that Missouri, especially the running backs, were really good at forcing missed tackles. I believe all but 20 yards for Ahmad Hardy came after contact, which, again, that's just awful. So if this was just a one-game thing, if you had only had, say, 2 missed tackles, and then you had a bad night against Missouri, you say, okay, well, that's just a team that had a track record of forcing missed tackles, and maybe you could write it off. But now that you've done it 2 weeks in a row, and I think back to a couple years ago, when I think it was Lincoln Riley's first or second year when he was at Southern Cal, and that defense was awful at tackling when Alex Grinch was the defensive coordinator, and it just kept going the entire season. This isn't something that suddenly changes, right? You can't go out there Tuesday on practice day and say, all right, guys, focusing on tackling and suddenly fix it. This is some kind of fundamental structural issue within your program that I'm afraid is going to be persistent throughout the season.
And the interesting thing is, and I think I was asking Gerald or Jalen Kilgore, one of those two guys after the game, about what do you guys do? Because they're not going to say straight up, what everything they do during practice and stuff. But I just asked them point blank, how often do you guys actually work on tackling? And they said every single day, they dedicate time to it.
As you should.
And as you should. But I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row now where we're talking about the same thing. Like Clayton White literally 7 days ago, or whatever, less than 7 days ago, was just talking about the fact that, Carolina had their most missed tackles in the game against Vanderbilt, just a week ago. And they obviously eclipsed that number this past weekend. I mean, you gotta be better. You gotta be better. Shane talks about getting 11 hats to the ball and stuff. I mean, are we seeing that right now? I don't think so. I think we're seeing the way he kind of broke it down when I asked him yesterday is that, some guys maybe thought the play was over or that they had the guy wrapped up. But, I mean, you can't if you're churning those legs like Missouri's running backs were, the play is certainly not over. So you definitely got to be more cognizant of that, I think.
Play to the whistle. That's always the until it is blown dead. That play is still going. And when you have a team like Missouri that's known for getting more out of just about every single run, you should be putting extra effort into making sure the play is over before you stop your effort there. So we'll continue to unpack this. Want to get more of your thoughts as well. Love share, AAA Heating and Air phone lines as well as Firehouse Subs text line 803-404 6-100 is Reaction Monday here on the Extra Point on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I will happily remind you, as I always do, that you always need to be on the lookout for things around your home that might be a little bit off. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you have any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues, and that's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialist come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com, and they'll send a professional out to your home to evaluate your foundation issues and get them fixed right so you and your family can live without worry going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com and get a professional from Canty Foundation Specialist out to your home to fix your foundation issues. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you on your Reaction Monday here on the game, taking your thoughts off of Carolina's second straight loss in SEC play to start the season as they fall to Missouri 29-20 out in Como. Jim weighs in on the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-446-100, says, Beamer saying you've got to get 11 hats on the ball or whatever he said is wrong. It doesn't take all 11 players on defense to make a tackle. Just freaking wrap up and make a tackle. You're not technically wrong on that. Ideally, you'd like to have as many guys around the ball carrier as possible in the event that, one guy doesn't make a tackle. There's somebody else there to clean it up. But there were several instances, and I go back to that Jamal Roberts touchdown run where it seemed like there were all 11 guys around the ball, and he still somehow squirted out and got the touchdown, which, again, we talked more about Ahmad Hardy and his ability to make guys miss tackles. Jamal Roberts still forced 6, maybe all in that one play alone on Saturday, too.
I mean, he was really good in the run game. Bo Perbula was really nice in the run game, too. That's how Missouri won this game. They didn't have to throw the ball much at all. Like, Bo Perbula, I think, threw for 171 yards in this game. He didn't need to do much of anything. I mean, they ran for nearly 300 yards with 285 on the day. And, Ahmad Hardy accounted for most of that, 138 yards. I mean, they ran the heck out of him in this game. Like, Missouri basically said, we're going to run Ahmad Hardy, and there's nothing you can do to stop us.
Wouldn't you?
I mean, why not?
Yep.
Why not? He is a really good running back. And like I said, probably the best portal pickup right now. I mean, Perbula, 72 yards on the ground, had some really key third down, open gap type of runs. And then, Jamal Roberts, obviously 76 yards on the ground. I mean, that's how you won this game.
Yep.
And you made enough pass plays to win as well, but obviously through the ground game, that's where South Carolina just could not get any stops.
We head back out of the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Drew wants to weigh in on what he saw on Saturday. Drew, appreciate the call. What's on your mind?
Guys, I really don't know where to begin. Couple of things. I'm a Beamer guy. I do take a little exception with his press conference. I know, he's the moment. He basically said, we were in the game. We were leading. I mean, were we ever really in the game? I know score-wise you can say that, but just watching the lines of scrimmage, I just beg to differ. And another question is, off the O-line, if I'm not mistaken, we only lost for Sean Lee and Torselli Simpkins, correct, from last year?
Marbell as well. So you lost
Marbell.
your two guards.
Okay, all right.
The whole interior is new.
Okay. With that being said, we've supposedly recruited, and no one can tell me on paper that we don't out-recruit Missouri and Vanderbilt every year, at every position, including O-line and D-line. But yet, you wouldn't know it. So, and last but not least, if you look at total points, granted, it's kind of skewed by the special teams, but, we're averaging right around, 17, 20 a game. No one's really addressed this. I think the mental pressure on the defense alone has to be overwhelming. I know they would never, call out their teammates and say it, but, they have eyes and ears, and you can't tell me every game the defense doesn't feel an extra burden of pressure knowing, hey, our offense sucks. Seriously, the pressure on the defense has to be overwhelming for them to realize for us to have any chance, we've got to shut teams down. That's just not realistic with the rules of modern football. Every rule, pro or college, gives the offense every advantage they could ever want. So, to me, I think the mental pressure the defense is under currently and the rest of the year is only going to get ramped up. And I don't know. I know you got to take it week to week. Everybody says that. But, I'm looking at Coastal and Kentucky as our next two wins. And, Kentucky's probably pedestrian average. They don't really scare me. But our offense doesn't scare any defense. A average defense can probably whip our O-line, and it's been proven. So I don't know. I'm just all over the place. I'm going to Ole Miss and LSU with my daughter. I don't know why we're going. I've got to find me a new hobby on Saturdays. But after 49 plus years of going to Gamecock football, it's hard to find a new hobby. So I'm open to any suggestions. Hell, I'll do basket weaving or quilt weaving or sewing. I don't know. I'll do anything, but have to watch this doo-doo I'm watching. So I don't know, guys. Walk me off the ledge. Find me a new hobby.
We'll try our best there, Drew. Appreciate the call, 803-404-6100. First of all, and you mentioned the part about, Beamer saying you're in the game there at the end, which you were. It's kind of one of those things that even when South Carolina was leading this game going into the fourth quarter, it felt like they were behind by 10, right? Like it felt like the entire game they were just behind, which again, when you're getting the ball run down your throat that way, it's going to feel that way. And again, give the offense credit for at least doing enough to make that a competitive game at the very end instead of getting blown out, 42-10 or something like that. But the O-line, as he brought up in his second point there, how much longer do we have to keep saying this, man? I mean, again, I've been covering this program for 3 years. Jack, you've been doing it longer than me, and we keep talking about these same issues. And yes, I know on Saturday you had injuries. Nolan Hayes started, at center. Rodney Newsom had to come in. Boaz Stanley was playing, I guess, right guard during the game. So it wasn't your typical starting five, right? And again, if you had played phenomenal on the offensive line through the first 3 games and had a bad night on Saturday, I'd just write that off saying, all right, you mixed things up. It didn't go well. But again, we haven't seen great offensive line play through the first couple of games, and it was even worse on Saturday. They did give Sellers some clean pockets, so I'll give them credit for that. But again, 0 push up front when it came to the run game.
But the other part of the issue is there were so many false start penalties.
And that was putting you behind the 8 ball more often than not, too.
That's the other thing. So, and just to give a few offensive numbers here, I disagree with some of what Drew said, and hopefully he does find a new hobby if he really wants to. I mean, hey, you can go be the biggest Clemson hater out there. I mean, that could be a pretty cool hobby to cheer against Clemson.
It's hard to enjoy when Carolina's not winning, though.
That's true. But I disagree a little bit with the offense is doing nothing for the defense. I mean, your offense gave you something in this game. I mean, the offense was so much better than what you saw first 3 games. Now, the run game stunk. I mean, real bad. Like, the run game was non-existent. Let's just take those guys out of the equation for a minute. Passing-wise, again, you threw for 300-plus yards. You had some really good moments in this game with Lenore Sellers and showing off that arm. Really good in that situation. But the thing I look at with the offense and just why I think Missouri also won this game, time of possession was literally just about the same as it was last weekend's Vanderbilt. 35 minutes for Missouri, 24 for South Carolina. You went 3 of 11 on third downs. Missouri went 7 of 13 on third downs. They also South Carolina also ran 25 less plays than Missouri in this game. Only 50, dude. Only 50.
Yep.
Yet they averaged 5.9 yards per play. It's just Missouri had the ball longer and they did more. So you got to find a way to get your offense the ball more often and win that kind of – I know time possession isn't everything, but you'd probably like to win that a little bit more.
More to unpack from this. We'll let Beamer. We'll let you hear what Beamer had to say about the 14 penalties after the game on Saturday night. Up next, and we'll get more of your thoughts from the Firehouse Subs text line as well. Coming up in just a second here, by the way, our next opportunity for you to win some cash in our cash contest giveaway. Just be listening out for that keyword and get ready to text it once that keyword is said in just a moment here on the Extra Point on the Game.
I think it's hard to say. It's one bad night when we've had the number of pre-snap penalties that we've had, and it wasn't just the offense tonight, David. It was the offense. It was the special teams not snapping a ball because we couldn't hear, kicking a ball out of bounds. I mean, those are pre-snap penalties too. So, the definition of insanity is continue to do the same thing over and over again. So, when you have 14 penalties on the road, something's got to change. Starting with me.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points Hour Head and Jack Belcher along with you on your Reaction Monday, breaking down Carolina's 29-20 loss at the hands of the Missouri Tigers on Saturday. And Beamer's right. It feels like we're a broken record talking about this every single week when it comes to penalties overall, but specifically pre-snap penalties. And South Carolina was penalized 14 times, I believe, for 98 total yards on Saturday, but pretty much half of those, 7 of the 14 penalties, came pre-snap. One of those was Jalen Kilgore lining up offsides one time on defense, but the other 6 on the offensive line with false starts or something to that effect. And there were several times where it wasn't one guy, it was the entire offensive line not being set. And again, you can, in a way, forgive the occasional holding call because that's a part of effort and you're trying to do your job in the midst of a play. But when you're not even getting set and lining up right consistently, much like tackling, I don't know what you have to do to fix this, but I feel like it's going to be a consistent problem the entire season.
I mean, yeah, at this point, you're kind of just working with it. I mean, you had, of your 14 penalties, you had just about a penalty for everything in this game. You had the false starts, obviously. You had 2 offensive holdings. You had an ineligible receiver downfield. You had a defensive holding. You had an offsides penalty. You had 2 face masks in this game. You had an unnecessary roughness that I honestly thought was going to be a targeting on Vakari Swain, but It got called unnecessary roughness. And then you had a running into the kicker. I mean, you had everything in this game. Very just undisciplined, in my opinion. And, you know, I asked Shane about this yesterday, kind of what is it with the pre-snap penalties? And, you know, we heard the guys talking about how it gets loud and stuff and all that. We know that was the situation from 2 weeks ago against SC State where they could not hear a bunch of the play calls. And Shane was just quite frank. I mean, he basically just said, you know, look, we're going to be going into louder environments. It's going to be a hell of a lot louder going into LSU and Ole Miss and Texas A&M. So, and he hopes that they're not using that as an excuse, obviously, the players and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like, you had so many issues communicating once again, and it's really affecting you in general now.
Carolina, by the way, 114th in the nation in penalty yards so far this season. And again, this is something that it's not a one-week anomaly. This is happening each and every week, specifically when you talk about the offensive line pre-snap penalties. And like you said, you got Baton Rouge coming up here in a couple weeks. That's going to be louder than anything you've seen so far this year. You're struggling with it at home. You're definitely going to struggle with it there. And again, this is something that I don't think you fix in one practice or 1 week. This is a fundamental issue of something going wrong with this team that I don't expect to change anytime soon, unfortunately. And one more note, when you're talking about what could have been there with Vakari Swain, and it got called unnecessary roughness. They didn't uphold the targeting, so he was able to stay in the game there, but he still had a 15-yard penalty nonetheless. Dylan Stewart also could have been called for a 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty where he basically tried to suplex, I think it was Ahmad Hardy, towards the end of the game. And this, unfortunately, is also becoming a narrative of Dylan Stewart being frustrated and taking it out on opponents, where he got kicked out of the game last week and very well could have had something similar happen this week. The officials didn't see it for whatever reason, but nonetheless, it still happened.
He's got problems, and they need to be fixed. I mean, the anger and the frustration, I get it. You're getting double teamed. They're running to the other side of the field on you and stuff, and you're not making a big impact. Yes, I get it, man. I do. But you gotta take it easy. Like, again, all this stuff is going to affect your team one way or the other, and it's selfish, quite honestly, if you continue to do it and whatnot. Like, you don't want this to become a weekly thing that we're talking about, where, oh man, Dylan Stewart, he's getting pent up. Got pent up frustration. It's building, and every single week there's something that goes on. you don't want to talk about that with one of your best players on defense. I mean, you want to see him go out there and do his thing, but it's obviously tough for him right now.
And I forget who tweeted about it. I don't know if you saw this or not, but apparently there was a situation after the game where he was trying to walk off the field, and Beamer had to kind of bring him back in to go stand with the team for the alma mater as well. Now, that could be nothing, but when you add it on to what's happened over the past couple of weeks, it's definitely something that concerns you.
So I did not see this with my own eyes. I saw, obviously, Jordan Kay from the state. He tweeted it out. I'll take his word for it. I mean, Jordan's a good reporter. I trust what he says, obviously, and what he sees, obviously. So, I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal, quite honestly, that it's been made out to be. It's just the alma mater, and I know that means a lot to people here, but that'd be the last thing on my mind after a loss where, you should have won that game.
Yeah.
So I think it's blown out of proportion a
Yeah,
little bit.
and again, if it was just a one-time thing, but when you kind of add it into everything else that's been going on with Stewart the past couple weeks, it definitely just kind of adds to that list a little bit. More of your reactions coming up in hour number 2 as we try and sort through what went wrong for South Carolina against Missouri on Saturday as they fall to 0-2 in conference play and 2-2 on the season. It is the Extra Point. It's our end Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on the game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. I've been telling you about it each and every weekend this month, and I'll remind you once again, Brew Days are back every Wednesday in September. They are celebrating one of their most beloved things over at Twin Peaks, that being beer. Where you can get down to Twin Peaks and score a 22-ounce Twin Peaks brew on draft for just $3.99 all day long. That's been going on each and every Wednesday in September. That will be happening once again coming up this Wednesday, September the 24th. And, of course, there's never a bad time to be at Twin Peaks, especially during football season. Mondays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sunday, all action you can take in with our friends over at Twin Peaks with a 29-degree draft beer, some delicious food, and, of course, all the fun that Twin Peaks has to offer. Get down there, Twin Peaks, for football season today. Welcome back in hour number 2, Extra Point. It's Howard and Jack Belcher with you on your Reaction Monday here on the game. Looking back at Carolina's 29-20 loss to the Missouri Tigers out in Como over the weekend, where, again, unfortunately, they have now lost possession of the Mayor's Cup. Now, I'm sure it'll be in a janitor's closet somewhere out there in the Missouri football facility. And once again, you fall to that dastardly Eli Drinkwitz, who annoys the heck out of us, but, man, he's putting together some good teams at Missouri these days.
He's done a great job there. I mean, Missouri is off to a 4-0 start. Again, we talked about it last week. Like, people underrate Missouri a lot of the times. They overlook them, and they're continuing to churn out good seasons. I mean, 11 wins 2 years ago, 10 wins last year. They are a real good team, and they got a real nice offense. And credit where it's due, they replaced a lot of that offense. Like, Brady Cook's gone, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss, the running backs that they've had over the years. Those guys are gone. But they went into the portal, brought in a new quarterback, brought in a new running back, new receivers. They look like they haven't missed a beat at all. And that defense was really good at times on Saturday.
Marshall weighs in on the Firehouse Subs text line at 803-404-6100. Says, I don't have enough space or tech space for my reaction to how badly the Gamecocks play, especially on defense. So I'm going to take a different approach for Reaction Monday. The Hardy kid from Missouri is the best running back I've seen in the SEC since Todd Gurley, perhaps even going back to Jerry McFadden and the Felix Jones days back in Arkansas. And I do feel like, again, we're focusing on specifically on what South Carolina's done. You got to give a lot of credit to Ahmad Hardy and the team as a whole, but, like, that dude is special. Right? This guy was at Louisiana Monroe last year, I believe, as a true freshman, tearing it up. And look, we've seen plenty of guys that can tear it up at the G5 level, but we always say, all right, we'll get to an SEC or a Big Ten level and see what you can do there. Well, he's now doing that, and he's done it against 2 Power 4 opponents so far this year in Kansas and South Carolina. And I know, Mateer is the hot name for Heisman as of right now, but if Ahmad Hardy keeps doing this kind of stuff, I mean, his name should be in that same conversation.
He should be getting to New York. Like, that is, if he keeps it up at this pace. I mean, the things he's doing right now, let me go pull up the stats here and look at exactly how he's done this year. So, again, 138 yards the other night, 600 yards on the season so far, 6 touchdowns. He's ran for over 100 yards or more in each of his 4 games, and he ran for 250 against Louisiana. Now, again, those numbers came against Louisiana, Kansas, and Central Arkansas. But again, he did against South Carolina in that defense. So, I mean, he's really, really good. If he keeps it up and finishes with, like, I don't know how many yards he would necessarily need to get to, be in the real Heisman conversation, but his name should be up there right now.
Well, Ashton Jeanty had an ungodly amount of statistics last year, but it was at Boise State. And the knock on him was, hey, he's doing that against, Mountain West defenses. What would he do in the SEC or the Big Ten? Well, I'm not saying Ahmad Hardy's going to touch those same numbers, but if he can even be in the stratosphere of what Ashton Jeanty did a year ago, and he's off to a pretty darn good start, then I think he should win the Heisman without question. I know it's kind of become a quarterback award, though he did have a wide receiver / cornerback, win it last year. But, man, a dominant running back, I mean, we really haven't seen that since, I guess, Derrick Henry at the SEC level a decade ago when he won the Heisman Trophy, of guys that are just complete game changers at that running back spot that, we're doing it on a consistent week in, week out basis. And again, it's only 4 games in, and like you said, 2 of those against Central Arkansas and Louisiana. But I'll tell you this much. When Missouri's playing this year, if I have the opportunity to watch them, I want to watch Ahmad Hardy to see if he keeps doing this. They play Alabama, and they got A&M and teams like that. I want to see if he can do it against them, because if he can, then there should be nobody that can stop this guy.
It's just crazy that they found this guy out of the portal, and I mean, he was at Louisiana Monroe, a Sun Belt school, and he had a good year last year. But I mean, give credit to Drinkwitz and his staff. I mean, they went out and found the right guy, and it just makes, let's put this in a South Carolina perspective for a minute. It just makes you feel like, that's what Missouri got, and South Carolina got Rasul Faison, a guy that they were clamoring for to be here for 9+ months, talking about Rasul and all that. And is it safe to say Rasul's kind of been disappointing so far?
I will say last week it looked like he started to kind of find something on the ground, ran for 75 yards in a game and a touchdown. So I thought he was kind of getting his legs underneath him a little bit there. He took pretty much all the carries in that game, which was all the more interesting why Carolina mixed it up as much as they did at running back. Like Matthew Fuller got a carry early on in the game on Saturday. I was like, where the heck did that come from? We didn't see any Isaiah Augusta. Oscar Radaway caught a couple carries. So I kind of thought last week was the turning of the page of, okay, now Rasul Faison is going to be your number one guy, but the carries didn't reflect that on Saturday. And again, your main job as a running back is obviously to run the football and be good at that. But if you're blowing blocks the way that Rasul Faison did, because he did it a couple times in the game, like that's how you lose playing time if you're a running back.
Yeah, no, totally. You have to be a multifaceted player. You cannot just be a good runner. Like you have to be able to block as well. That is something that Shane has talked about a lot of times with the receivers on the perimeter and blocking. Like if you want to play receiver at South Carolina, you got to be able to block.
Yep.
You want to play running back here, you also have to be able to block. And, Beamer defended the whole what Faison was doing yesterday on the first and goal block. I say block, but let's put that in quotations. Block attempt. Yeah, it was not a very good attempt. But again, I mean, the numbers for Faison on Saturday were just flat out disappointing. I mean, 6 carries, 5 yards on the ground. And look, we can all put it back to the fact of, the offensive line wasn't creating holes and stuff. But that's the thing. You watch that tape at Utah State. And I know Utah State is different from South Carolina and stuff. But if holes weren't there for Faison last year, he was making it work. He was keeping those legs moving, finding even the smallest of gaps and taking it a long way. Maybe it's just different now with the defenses that he's facing and stuff. We know there's a good running back there, but we just have not seen it yet. He's been very mediocre at best, I think.
But before we move on from Ahmad Hardy really quick, again, we talked all week about that outside zone run scheme. I feel like, at least in the first half, the majority of their stuff was between the tackles. They didn't really start doing outside zone until the second half, if I'm remembering what their play calls were correctly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was something coming into the game that we knew, we heard Beamer talk about it. They were going to rely a lot on in this game. And I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be pleased with the results because they ran for 285 yards in this game. I mean, and that's been a common theme in these games for South Carolina over the years. In all 3 trips that they've gone to Missouri in the Beamer era, Missouri's ran the ball for over 200 yards each time. And it's been a different running back every year that's kind of torched them a little bit. And so to see it happen again, it's just like, I mean, you got to prepare for the run. But also, Missouri can throw it a little bit, even though we didn't fully see it on display in this game.
Yeah, I'm looking at the numbers here, and it looks like the majority of their stuff was more the inside stuff than it was the outside. Regardless, they had I'm just looking at Ahmad Hardy's numbers here. Regardless, they had success no matter what they were doing when it came to attempts on the ground. And again, that's an indictment on that Carolina defense for the missed tackles that they had. And my goodness, I look at all these other teams you're going to be facing with good quality running games in the SEC. They're going to try and take advantage of that exact thing. And again, this is unfortunately something when it comes to tackles. Same thing with the pre-snap penalties and all that kind of stuff. I don't feel like you're fixing that in one practice. And look, I'm sure they're drilling it into these guys' heads this week leading into this Kentucky game, but it's a fundamental thing that I'm afraid is going to be persistent throughout this entire season.
I'm afraid there are just too many flaws right now with this team to really make it work. I mean, moving forward, I think you should beat Kentucky this weekend, but that's no guarantee. I mean, Kentucky is coming off a bye week, number 1. They had I would say a relatively good performance. Would we say good performance against Ole Miss? I mean,
yeah,
I feel like
they played Ole Miss tough, though. They always seem to do that for whatever reason.
Yeah, and so we'll see on Saturday. Again, we know it's a night game. We know it's going to be a loud environment, all this and that. End of the day, like, it comes down to what you do on the field. And if South Carolina makes all these mistakes once again, look, they've done it 2 weeks in a row. What's stopping them from making these mistakes once again? I mean, they can try their best to get cleaned up, but obviously whatever they're doing right now is not working. And Shane kind of admitted that towards the end of the press conference that hey, look, if what we're doing right now is not working, then we maybe need to try something different. So hopefully they are finding something different to get the most out of these guys. But it just comes down to playing smarter football. I mean, wrap up, make tackles. We had that texter earlier talk about the fact that, yeah, you don't need necessarily all 11 hats to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
You just need the guy to freaking wrap up. I agree. That is what it comes down to. Make better tackles, continue to take pretty good angles, and just make plays.
Well, and to your point a moment ago, you shouldn't have to be changing what you're doing mid-season, right? That's what the spring, that's what the summer's for, is to prepare yourself as best as possible so you're not in these kind of scenarios, because guys, you only have so many hours during the week, right? What's the 20-hour rule when it comes to student athletes, particularly football players? So in that time frame of the time that you get with them, obviously you have to focus on the game plan and the install for Kentucky this upcoming weekend. So focusing on just fundamental things like tackling more than you would in a normal practice is taking away from other elements that you should be focusing on, because you're 4 weeks into the season and you shouldn't be having to go back to the basics each and every time.
No, it's gonna kill you down the line when you have to play. I mean, again, Kentucky is your last non-ranked opponent here for a little bit. I mean, you're 5 games after the bye week, where you get LSU, Oklahoma, Bama, Ole Miss, A&M. All those teams are highly ranked right now, and it's gonna be tough to go in there and beat those teams. So you really got to get all these things figured out. You got to be more disciplined, be smarter. Wrap up. I mean, I can't say it enough times. Wrap the guy up, bring him to the ground. Whatever you got to do, you got to do it.
Want to hit a couple more notes on offense on the other side, as it was yet another tough day when it came to third downs as well. And we'll talk about how Sellers performed on Saturday, too. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Reaction Monday here on The Game.
think we can figure it out. I mean, last year was pretty much in the same situation. Started at the beginning of the year, got it rolling later, but I mean, including with me, like, we can all get better. But I'm sure we can get it rolling, figure it out.
Yeah. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you here on your Reaction Monday on the Game. That the voice of the Lenoir Sellers talking after the loss on Saturday of, having hope that they can figure things out. And that is something that we will continue to at least mention as time goes along. The ES Beamer teams play their better football later on in the season, and you're going to need it because your schedule doesn't get any easier from here. But nevertheless, you find yourself in a 2-2 spot right now, 0-2 in conference play, which is obviously less than ideal for Sellers, though. On Saturday, at least from a passing standpoint, a pretty solid all-around day, considering the fact that you had absolutely no running game to help you out. He goes 18 of 28, 302 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, no picks, though there was a couple of instances where it very much looked like Missouri was going to have an interception. The defenders just ended up dropping it. But, man, give Sellers credit. He uncorked some phenomenal throws that, in case you had forgotten, reminded you why NFL scouts are salivating over this guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had a really nice game passing here. Again, he went 18 of 28 passing, 302 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Again, that interception number probably could have been a few. The thing that Lenoir's, the stats will tell you it's a good game for him, but there were some plays definitely where he took sacks where he didn't need to. He, on some of these sacks that he took, I think there was one in particular where there's a crossing route over the middle, and he had a little bit of a window where if he steps up and is able to get out of the pocket a little bit, he can make a throw. But instead, he just kind of backs up a little bit more and gets hit. So he's got to just be a little bit more cognizant, a little smarter at times. But again, 302 yards passing is 300 yards passing. So you take it as it comes. Just there's more work to do, obviously, but it's a step in the right direction for Lenoir, undoubtedly.
Saturday was also a reminder to me of, like, man, this is legitimately maybe the most talented quarterback, I think, without question, this school has ever seen. Nobody's ever been, projected as a first round, maybe even a top 10 pick at the quarterback spot, in their time at Carolina. And I just shudder at the fact that you may be talking about this being a 6-6 or a 7-5 team with that kind of talented quarterback. Because as we've talked about before, you have no clue what your next step at quarterback is, whether it's Aaron Nolan or Landon Duckworth. There's no guarantee any of those guys are going to be in the same stratosphere athletically and ability-wise as Lenoir Sellers. You want to be able to capitalize while you have this talent, and right now you're behind the 8 ball.
I'll ask you the question, and I feel like they are, and when I'm about to ask this, do you feel like they're wasting Lenoir Sellers right now?
For this year, it feels like it. Again, there's a lot of football left to be played, but again, you have this supreme talent, and again, the MO of the offseason was to make him a better all-around passer, and he even said it after the game on Saturday, hey, they're taking some of my run looks away. So it's not as simple as we've talked about of just saying, hey, he's just going to start running the ball again, because defenses are keying in to try and prevent that. But with the talent that you have at quarterback, it feels underwhelming right now for this season. Like, this is a team that we thought could have another shot at being in the mix for the college football playoff, and right now we're hoping they get to 6 wins in a bowl game.
That's the thing, and we don't even know if they're going to get to, like, where are you finding 6 wins? Like sure, Kentucky, Coastal, I would say probably Clemson. I mean,
maybe they could be better by the end of the year. Who knows?
The home team hasn't won this game in so long. I think going back to before COVID. I mean, it's been a while. So, and then you also look at the fact of I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I lost my train of thought, honestly.
That's all good. Yeah, but yeah, regardless, it just feels it's underwhelming right now. You're 2-2, 0-2 in conference play, and again, we're looking at this schedule now, trying to find where you get enough wins to get yourself to any kind of game in December. Like, playoffs are light years away from the mindset right now, and should be with the way that this team is playing so far. Note here really quick, talking about third downs we do each and every week. You went 3 of 11 on Saturday, and your average down distance 12.5. Again, pre-snap penalties, sacks, it all adds up. And again, this is just like last year, a consistent issue with this team once again.
No, it's just a real big problem they have going on right now. And again, it's like we know they know they have to fix it. They knew it last week, and yet the same things are continuing to happen. If it happens again this weekend, where we're talking about next Monday on Reaction Monday about, man, South Carolina was awful on third downs, offensively and defensively, the missed tackles, the penalties. Again, until we see a clean performance, this is going to be a potential every week problem. And the fact that it's happening at the rate it is so far, Tyler, this early in the year, it's just, what do you what do you even do to fix it at this point? I mean, it sounds like they're trying to fix it, but at the end of the day, like, the guys on the field have to just go out there and just do it. I mean, it's just not happening.
And that's a big problem with this offense in a lot of ways. It does boil down to execution. Sure, there are moments where Shula could call better plays, but we've seen more often than not the execution out there is just not there. And again, that's going to be a consistent problem this year if you're still doing these kind of things 4 weeks into the season. We want more of your thoughts on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Go out to Ray, who wants to weigh in. Ray, appreciate your call as always. What's on your mind, man?
Hey, Tyler. Hi, Jack. Yeah, and this is the second week in a row. And maybe it was in the first two games, too. We look back on their wins, so I don't want to be too critical on wins, you know. But our team was not prepared to play second week in a row. We weren't mentally prepared, or we weren't prepared for formations or schematics, as old Will Muschamp you like used to say. But we were just not prepared, and we got totally beat. And the thing is, the SEC, of course, there's great athletes in the SEC, but it's still a line of scrimmage conference. And the teams you play in the SEC, from Vandy to everybody except for maybe us, these teams have good to very good offensive lines. And we have no push on our offensive line. Even my wife noticed that. She was a band person, so, marching band. So there you go. But even she noticed it, that the other team, she said, the other team just push our guys away, and our line can't, push their guys. I said, wow, you're exactly right. I mean, we're just, as long as I've been a Gamecock fan, and I said it earlier, I don't remember a game where you could have absolutely tackling that was every bit as bad as your blocking. And if you can't tackle, you can't block, you're not going to win in this conference. You're just not going to win. And I know we like to blame, and I say we, people, college football fans all over the Southeast, we like to blame position coaches, we like to blame coordinators, but I'm just tired of that. I think it goes straight to the head guy. And I'm concerned about this football program, like a lot of Gamecock fans are. Hopefully they'll get it going, but there's nothing there that tells me they are. And I think you're at a point of the year where you're just who you are. You're just who you are. And I got words for Coach Beamer. Coach Beamer, I don't think it's conspiracy theorist out there. I think it is what it is, brother. But anyway, thanks for letting me talk, guys.
Yeah, man, appreciate it as always, Ray. 803-404-6100. And this, I hate to say, you're now entering a must-win game against Kentucky this weekend, but that's what that is. Like, you have no option. And my goodness, these today and last Monday were not fun, obviously talking about losses. But you lose to Kentucky. There are very few teams in the SEC that people would say are at the bottom of the barrel in the conference as of right now, because most SEC teams have shown you a lot of good things through the first couple weeks. But I think most people would agree that Kentucky is probably the worst team in the conference as of right now. Mississippi State has looked very strong. They got a big upset win. And and Kentucky even played a great game against Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. But I think the consensus is this is the worst team in the SEC. They still got to go out there and play the game, but I don't even want to think about what we'd be talking about next week if they've dropped 0-3 in conference play ahead of the murderer's row that you have starting with LSU after the bye.
They won't make a bowl game if that's the case. And this is what I meant to say earlier before I lost my train of thought. You get Clemson, Coastal, Kentucky. Those should potentially be your 3 wins right there to get to 5, and you're probably going to win a game that you shouldn't. Happens every single year. It'll happen again this season probably. But yeah, man, and if you lose this game to Kentucky, keep in mind, it's fresh in your mind for 2 weeks because you're going into a bye week after. Yeah. And then you're going into LSU afterwards. The magnitude of this game, this is they should be treating this like the national championship. You got to go out here, do whatever it takes. Remember when we were joking about Paul Maneri talking about how they're going to treat the Presbyterian game like Game 7 of the World Series? I need to see South Carolina treating this game like the Super Bowl, because if they lose this game, they are quite literally screwed in every way.
Yeah, like you said, if you lose this one, you marinate on that for 2 weeks before going to Death Valley and taking on one of the best teams in the country in LSU. So, yes, a must-win game this upcoming weekend against Kentucky. If you want something to make you feel a little bit better about what happened on Saturday night, at least Clemson is suffering too, and we'll get into that coming up on the other side. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you. Quick reminder, the Loyer-Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest is back. If the Gamecocks score a special teams touchdown, you can win all the money in the pot, which is up to $300 now as they head into the Kentucky game this upcoming weekend. Just go online to 1075thegame.com and register if you've not already for the Loyer-Lisa Special Teams Touchdown Contest. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher on your Reaction Monday here on the game.
mean, I think when you're playing a really good football team, you got to put it all out there. Right? You just got to go. You got to go do everything you possibly can do to win. We were playing to win the game today. You know, we weren't playing to try to stay in the game. We wanted to play the game to win the game. We felt like they're the best defense in the country. Their front seven was guaranteed the best in the country. So I said, if we go at them, let's just go play ball. Let's go at them, right? Let's see who we are. See what it's made about. See what we're about, right? We were working on just all things. Coaches usually say, I'm not worried about being ranked, or I'm not worried. There's a lot of things I'm telling our players that you guys deserve. So, like, we worked for that, and we got a chance to go out and do it versus a really good team that I guarantee you within the next week, you'll see it click, and they're going to go run off about 8 straight.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Reaction Monday here on the game. That was the voice of Syracuse head coach Fran Brown talking about taking down the Clemson Tigers on Saturday, 34-21 to hand Clemson their third loss in the first 4 games of the season as Fran Brown improves his orange team to 3-1 on the year. We'll have to get to Clemson in a moment. But, man, what a job Fran Brown is doing at Syracuse. This was a program that under Dino Babers was lucky to make bowl games. And in his first year, they win 10 games. And now through the first 4 games of the season, I know they got beat by what looks like a really good Tennessee team, but they've handled their business since and just took down Clemson on the road on Saturday.
Syracuse looks good. Again, the ACC, you might have Syracuse and Georgia Tech competing to play for an ACC championship. I mean, that would be pretty cool, honestly. And, I mean, look, those are 2 teams that have beaten Clemson, and they're both really solid. Now, Syracuse did lose Steve Angeli, the starting quarterback, for the season. Achilles injury. Sucks to see that since the Notre Dame transfer. Pretty good quarterback. Showed some good things in this game. Now they got to rely on Ricky Collins, who I believe is a transfer from LSU, if I heard that correct in the broadcast. So,
I believe so, yeah. He came in and did a good job.
He did. I mean, limited sample size, 3 of 8, 34 yards, 1 touchdown. But, again, Syracuse off to a really good start this year. And little old Clemson, they're kind of struggling right now, aren't they?
I want to say this, and we'll get to what Dabo said in just a second, but Fran Brown came in there with the mindset of we're going to take a bat to Clemson, right? You see a team that's weak and struggling, and you want to go out there and take advantage of them as best you can. The props to him after their opening touchdown for onside kicking. Clemson didn't touch the ball on offense until they were already down 10-0 in that game. That is coaching to win, which is what Fran Brown did, taking advantage of a Clemson team that is not playing good football right now. Again, we talked about it, going into the game, that they hadn't played a full 4 quarters the entire year, and once again didn't do that again on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, Clemson they just don't look good right now. Their defense has a lot of issues right now, and this was a defense that coming into the year, there are a lot of NFL caliber, talented players on this team defensively, but just not getting the results out there. I mean, again, you give up 34 points in this game, and again, a lot of those came early on in this game. Again, you're saying it right there, Tyler. I mean, 10-0. I feel like the big momentum swing in this game happened so early, where Syracuse goes down the field, scores the touchdown, and then right after that, they do the onside kick and they recover, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that early on in this game was one of those points where it's like that kind of probably took the wind out of Clemson's sails a little bit.
So what did Dabo have to say after going on his rant to the media the other day, post-game on Saturday?
Just, I mean, disappointed, painful. I mean, hurt. I mean, I'm human. I mean, I'm not a cyborg. I mean, this is my life, man. I mean, I've been here 23 years. I love this place. I give this place the very best I got every single day. Every day. There's never been a day that I haven't given Clemson every ounce of everything I had. So I hurt. I mean, I'm invested my life here. And when I don't get the job done, I'm responsible. And I feel the pain. You know, it's not just my pain. I feel everybody's pain. And, but that comes with my job. And I don't run from that. At all. I mean, I've been in these situations many times. I've had a lot of great days, and this is a very, very low day. But I also know that we'll get through it, and there'll be a lot more great days. Nobody wants to hear that in this moment, but that's what drives me. Is being able to look back at different moments in my life and my career, certainly, and, you got through it. You got better. There's a lot of great days. So I just hurt. I hurt. I hurt, obviously, just because I take pride in what I do. I hurt for our team, hurt for our fans. And I certainly feel that.
Obviously a different tone than what he had on Monday or Tuesday, whenever his presser was talking about, don't forget, I've won 2 national championships, played 4, been to playoff, won this many ACC championships, and all that kind of stuff, reminding people, hey, don't forget all that I've done with you. And I was listening to Andy and Ari's podcast yesterday, recapping the weekend. When they were talking about Dabo, Ari Wasserman said something that really stood out to me. He said, past glory does not excuse current failure. And that's where Clemson is right now. Dabo thinks that the fans shouldn't be upset with him because of what he's done in the past. Doesn't matter right now. College football is a what have you done for me lately kind of sport. We have seen coaches get fired the calendar year following winning national championships, and Gene Chizik and Ed Orgeron. If you're not performing right now, people are going to come at you, and rightfully so. And to give any reason to think that Clemson fans should accept what the product's been on the field this year is ridiculous. They are upset with the current version of this team, especially one that was as hyped as it is in the offseason, considering what they had coming back, the amount of NFL caliber talent they have on that team. To be 1-3 on the year is completely inexcusable.
It's been 5 years since they played for a national championship. You got to go back to 2020, that 2019 season where you're playing against LSU, that Joe Burrow-led team, that really solid LSU team, for a national championship. Since then, what have you done? You made the playoff last year on essentially what was a technicality of Syracuse beating Miami in the final game of the year just to get you to the ACC championship. And, of course, they beat SMU to get there and whatnot. But still, Clemson has not been the same, necessarily in terms of track record of success since those mid-2010s, late 2010s type of seasons. And I don't think it's a talent issue. I know a lot of people want to make it out to be that Dabo doesn't utilize the portal and NIL and all that stuff. I can kind of see what you're saying with that. But I don't think the talent is the problem here. I think it's the coaching and getting the most out of these players and some of the decision-making and whatnot. I think it's more so a Dabo Swinney problem along with the coaching staff compared to the talent on the field. Because, Cade Klubnik is supposed to be a good quarterback. He's not a good quarterback this season for sure. They didn't come into the year with a true running back. Adam Randall was a wide receiver. And granted, he had a good game on Saturday, 130 yards on the ground, 16 carries, 8.1 yards per rush. Good numbers, but that's a wide receiver turned running back. And you knew you were losing Phil Moff after last season. So why didn't you go out there and get a real true running back? There are more problems with this team just based on the merits alone of they are just not doing the things it takes to win a game. And I think a lot of that does go back to the coaching, like I said.
This is kind of to the point, and look, there's a lot of football we played this year, but considering what this Clemson team was supposed to be this year, this is either to the point where Dabo really radically changes his approach. Because, again, think about Nick Saban, right? Nick Saban went from being the coach that was perfectly okay with scoring 14 points a game because he knew his defense could hold every opponent to 10, to adapting his offensive mindset to where his teams are scoring 30 and 40 points a game, with guys like Tua and Jalen Hurts only a handful of years ago, and that carried over on into Jalen Milroe, at the end of his tenure there at Alabama. He adapted because he saw the way the game was going. Dabo Swinney's not shown the ability to adapt to the way the game is right now, and not just on the field but off the field. And if you don't do that, you're going to fall behind. And look, he's the greatest coach that Clemson's ever had and going to be one of the greatest coaches of this era of college football. But it could end up being one of those things where it's just this steady decline where, the accomplishments get further and further in the rear view. And when we look at Clemson and say it's just a sad state of what it once was.
Yeah, we live in a society where it's more so, what have you done for me lately? Not, what did you do for me 5 to 10 years ago? Like you said, Tyler, Dabo is the greatest coach at Clemson ever. But end of the day, if this season goes as bad as even he said, hey, heck, we might go 6-6. If that's as bad as it gets, then I wouldn't be shocked at all if Clemson just moved on from him. There's a hefty buyout to pay. But at the end of the day, if Clemson wants to rid of him and move on and find someone else that's going to utilize these things that we're talking about and go out there and use the portal and NIL and all that, then they're going to go do it. I mean, you can't accept mediocrity at a school like Clemson where you've had a lot of success over the years.
I think it'd be more of a case of Dabo just deciding I'm done more than Clemson moving on from him because, again, the buyout's big, but obviously he's still the greatest coach they've ever had. And I don't see that happening anytime soon, but it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to unfold as time goes along. We'll come back and wrap up the show. Some breaking news on the front of future scheduling. That's up next here on the Extra Point. Tyrod and Jack Peltry on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Reaction Monday, wrapping up hour number 2. Coach Beamer will speak tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, which you'll be able to listen to right here on the game as he reacts to what happened on Saturday and looks ahead to Kentucky coming up on Saturday night over at Williams-Brice Stadium. Obviously, a lot of Week 4 things still to get to, which will probably bleed over into tomorrow because we got a little bit of breaking news earlier on this morning. We know that tomorrow night on the SEC Network at 7 o'clock, there'll be a reveal show for the annual opponents in the new SEC 9-game scheduling model where you have 3 teams that you play every single year and then the other 6 will rotate, where you'll see every team home and away over the course of a 4-year span. And we kind of figured before the reveal show tomorrow night, we'd get a leak on what those annual opponents were going to be. And indeed, we've got that because Chris Lowe, who now works for On3, has put out earlier on this morning what sources tell him are the 3 annual opponents for all teams in the SEC. And we'll obviously focus on South Carolina because their 3 annual opponents, per Chris Lowe of On3, are going to be Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida. So those are set to be the 3 teams that South Carolina will see every single year. To start out with, they did note that this would be reassessed every, I believe, 4 years to make sure there's competitive balance, but you get the return of your closest SEC team in Georgia, only 3 hours away, a Florida team that you have a long history with going back to the days of the SEC East, and a team that you're playing this upcoming weekend at Kentucky that I'd say has kind of had a budding rivalry aspect to it these past couple of years.
Yeah, no, I like the way this looks. I think this is the right way to go about it. You could say maybe Tennessee, but Tennessee would have been tough because you have all the built-in rivalries right there with Alabama, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky's also on Tennessee's schedule. So to have Kentucky, I feel like is the main one you had to get for sure. I think there was some concern of what's it going to look like with the trophy games that you have with Missouri and Texas A&M, but obviously those are not going to be on there every single season for South Carolina. So I like the way this looks, getting Georgia, getting Florida. It's about proximity as well, but also these are teams that South Carolina has a long-standing history with.
Well, and again, they're all 3 teams that were also in the SEC East, and you could have made a case for Tennessee, you could have made a case for Vanderbilt, but I'm good with this. And again, one of the biggest head scratchers over these past couple of years, or particularly with the way the schedule worked this past year, these past 2 seasons, was the fact that you don't play the team that you're closest to in the SEC in Georgia. Again, it's a 3-hour drive. It's easy for both fan bases to get to Athens or for them to get out here. It only makes a lot of sense, and it's a series that does have a good history, going back to like Spurrier years, some great games there. Obviously, it hasn't gone Carolina's way these past handful of years, but still, it's a rivalry that on both sides, I think both fans wanted to see come back, and at least for the first handful of years of this new 9-game scheduling model, that appears to be the case.
And we'll get the 6 other games for each season moving forward for the next 4 years when that is revealed tomorrow night. Maybe it'll also leak out earlier. What's stopping that from happening? But I mean, again, South Carolina will get to play. What is it? Every team, both home and away, over the next 4 years. I mean, that's gonna be really good for people that want to check all these stadiums off their list.
Well, and what we don't know, because like this year and last year, you played the same exact opponents, you just flipped it home and away. The SEC might do that, or say, all right, in 26 and 27, you play your 3 annuals, you play these 6 other teams, and you'll flip home and away, so you'll play the same opponents in back-to-back years. Or do you mix it up by saying, all right, you play these 6 this year, you'll play another 6 the next year, and then we'll flip it back and forth with the home and away in years 3 and year 4. But regardless, like you said, in a 4-year span, if you stay at if you're a student at South Carolina, you will get the opportunity to see and potentially travel to every venue in the SEC over a 4-year span, which thank God, because that part of the schedule has been a mess for so long with teams not playing each other or not playing home and aways forever. You know what I mean?
It is. So I'm glad to see that this looks right. I mean, again, I think they really got it right with the teams that are out in the Midwest, like Arkansas, A&M, Oklahoma are all on Missouri's schedule. I think they got it really right with Texas because Texas gets A&M, Arkansas, and Oklahoma geographically, I think was the biggest thing that they needed to get right with this, because it just didn't make sense for South Carolina to have the annual rivalries continue with A&M and Missouri. Not saying they won't play them, they obviously will.
Sure.
But it just makes more sense to have it the way it is right now with Georgia, Kentucky, and Florida.
Well, there you go. There's your leak from Chris Lovey of On 3 of your annual opponents in the SEC starting next year. And we'll obviously talk about this more later on in the week when we get the official reveal tomorrow night on the SEC Network. We'll dive back into Week 4 stuff coming up tomorrow. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
When it comes to HVAC replacements, AAA Heating and Air has your back. They offer guaranteed financing, 12 months with no payments or interest, and a 15-year warranty on parts and labor. If you need a new system, which, hey, there might come a point in time where you eventually do, whether it's your heating or your air conditioning unit need to be replaced, they're the best in the Midlands to go to. But what if you don't need a replacement? Here's the question. What if you just need a repair? I've got some good news for you. AAA Heating and Air has you covered there as well. They offer up to 12-month payment plans on repairs with no credit check for homeowners who just need repairs. All you need is just to have a valid bank account, and they'll handle the rest for you. So whether you need a replacement or repair, AAA Heating and Air has unbeatable options for you. Give them a call today and get your comfort back. AAA Heating and Air. Comfort you can trust.
11 o'clock on your Monday morning. Welcome in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell on yet another Reaction Monday. Fortunately, guys, coming off of second straight loss in a row, Carolina falls to Missouri 29-20 in the other Como. You lose possession of the Mayor's Cup. Just another rough Saturday in more ways than one for the Gamecocks on Saturday night.
Two. Where do we start unpacking this one?
Throw a dart at the board.
Look,
there's not a bad
I think
place.
so. I think we just start going, and we'll probably go for a couple or a few days on this thing. Here's the thing, guys. We all on Friday picked a loss for South Carolina. Missouri win. We were all in the ballpark. I think I was 27-20. I don't remember y'all. It ended up being 29-20.
I was 1 point off. I had 28-20.
Golly. Nice,
close.
Tyler.
I was close.
Not that anybody's celebrating that, but like, this is what Wes and I were talking about on GC Live this morning. If you are going in anticipating a loss, and certainly it could have gone the other direction, in theory and in reality, could have gone the other direction for South Carolina. You know, coming out that if you lose a ball game, there are going to be a lot of negatives to talk about because you lost. You know, this one though, I think is overly frustrating in how you lost it. Because you get the sense that a lot of the things were just so controllable, you know. Coming in, the very first starting point was not even a lot of the other stuff we ended up talking about. It wasn't defending the outside zone run scheme, which obviously became a problem. It wasn't even, can you run the football effectively, which was obviously a huge problem. It was, can you not make these just crazy mistakes that have been putting you behind the 8 ball and getting you in trouble through the first 3 games of the season. That was the number one area that you identified for South Carolina that had to be better in this game. You've got to go into this game. You've self-scouted. You know this is holding us back, right? Not only did you not solve those, they got worse throughout the course of the game, right? And it spilled over into those other areas. If you're trying to defend the outside zone, Ahmad Hardy's going to get some yards. He's going to break some tackles. That scheme is going to give most teams trouble, certainly giving South Carolina trouble. But you sure gave them an assist by missing 16 tackles on the day. Offensively, you had so many penalties that were procedural in nature. You had some on defense too, right? But a lot of procedural penalties. I think you can separate a procedural penalty for, a pass interference, or every now and then, you're going to get a holding. But the timing of those, putting South Carolina behind the sticks, the mistakes where, you're fortunate not to turn the ball over. Lenore Sellers threw a ball to a linebacker that was dropped.
There's a couple.
We'll talk, I'm sure, about the red zone play action pass where you're on the 2 with a first down, a chance to score, and you have to scuttle for a field goal because of mistakes that you make there. I think that's the biggest theme. That's the most frustrating theme of all this, is not only did you not improve in those play a cleaner game metrics, they got worse in this game. And ultimately, I think despite everything else, that's probably the first thing you point to as to why South Carolina lost. And there's plenty of other reasons, obviously, but that's the tough one to swallow.
Well, I think, guys, here's the thing. All penalties are not created equal. And guess what? In the course of a game, penalties are going to happen. They just are. And, if a guy interferes and gets called for defensive pass interference, fans are frustrated, whatever. But guess what? Those things are going to happen if you're playing hard, if you're playing good defense, if you're making competitive plays on the ball, stuff is just going to happen. It is the non-competitive penalties. It's the penalties where you false start. It's the penalties where you're not lined up when the ball is snapped. It is the procedural issues and just the overall number of penalties that is the biggest issue, I think, for South Carolina, and the most frustrating part, because you're looking at it going, could have won this game. But you are so reliant right now on offense, on big plays, and a lack of running game right now, a lack of just consistency to hang your hat on Well, when you take a 3-down sequence and all of a sudden you make the 1st and 10 a 1st and 15 because of something that didn't even happen on, like, within the course of an actual football play, it changes the math completely. So if you have no running game, then it makes it almost impossible to pick up that sequence of downs if you don't get help from your opponent. You know, Missouri early on had their fair share of penalties as well, giving South Carolina some opportunities, and I thought they were pretty good calls, like they were valid. But, you know, Missouri was probably saying, man, we're giving them too many chances. The touchdown throw, which was a thing of beauty to Vandrivius, you're going, hey, we got a free play. Let's just take a shot, which credit the guys for saying, hey, let's be aggressive here when they saw that Missouri jumps. But, you know, point being, those penalties will drive you crazy regardless. But if you're a dynamic offense that's had no problems going up and down the field, a lot of times those offenses just eat those penalties and keep moving, and it's not even a big deal. But when you are having struggles, when you're having consistency issues on offense, and 1st and 10 becomes 1st and 15, or let's say you do get a positive, a just 3 or 4 yard gain on 1st down, and you're looking at a modest 2nd and 7, and all of a sudden that becomes 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 11. You just erased a small positive play and made it just like you had a negative play on the previous down. And those things are just, they're momentum killers. They are mathematical killers in terms of just the down distance and your chances of picking up a 1st down on a given sequence of downs. And they're just a lack of attention to detail. And I'm sure it's been coached. I'm sure it's been talked about. I'm sure it's been hammered in practice and in the meetings and in the position groups and the total team meeting. I'm sure there's nobody more frustrated than the guys and the coaches, but yeah, it's tough to watch sometimes when that stuff happens, man.
So 14 total penalties, 98 yards penalized for Carolina on Saturday. 7 of those pre-snap. You had the one offsides with Kilgore on the defensive side, but everything else was false starts via the offensive line. Most of those coming on 1st downs. And when you look, now that we're 4 weeks into the season, you start to get an idea of what teams really are. Carolina's 114th in penalty yards per game in the nation. And it's not just, okay, you just had a bad week penalty-wise. This has become a consistent thing. And, you know, there's a lot of things we'll get to, like with the tackling and stuff, where that just kind of becomes your identity. You become a team that's just penalized a lot. You become a team that's making pre-snap mistakes, which is costing you 5 yards each and every time. And, you know, Beamer and the coaches can say, we're going to address this, we're going to work on this in practice this week, but until you start seeing the results of that on the fields on Saturday, which, by the way, you're going to be entering much more tougher environments than what Missouri had to offer on Saturday night, you know, namely LSU coming up here in a couple weeks. You just kind of get the idea that this is what this team is, and you're going to have to find a way to just consistently come back from, you know, being dinged 5 yards just about every single drive.
Well, and Beamer said, I think this was on his Sunday night teleconference, it was the last item that he addressed before they went out to practice. You're right, Wes. Like, it's not like they don't talk about penalties and don't try to coach these things, but Beamer's own words were, whatever we're doing, it's clearly not getting through. So what is it, right? Like, what is it and how do you fix it? And when you're, again, like broken record alert, when you're having this many struggles on offense, the bad part, because there's been some good in here in the passing game. That's what we saw the other night. There's been very little good to point to in the run game. There's been flashes in protection. Like, there's been some flashes, but the negative plays, the protection issues, and the lack of a run game, those are the things that are really hurting. And, of course, the penalties, you know, how do you try to reverse those trends? And penalties seem like the thing you should be able to fix the most. But I just think there's not one answer. You know, when you look at false starts, you know, what's one potential reason? Well, one potential reason is they've given up so much pressure. Are they not trusting the call? Are they not trusting the assignment? Are they, you know, getting a little jumpy because they know the guys that they've got lined up across from them are capable of doing some damage? Well, that's going to be the case, to your point, Wes, every other game this season too, and probably more so than even against Missouri. So how do you fix those things? I mean, are there some schematic adjustments that you make? Are there personnel adjustments that you make? Beamer said on Saturday night, right after the game, they have to look at all those things. And I think you've got to hope, too, that you just clean it up in the course of practice. But South Carolina's in a spot that's not very favorable right now because they're trying to prepare to play Kentucky. That's enough, right? Week to week, when you're trying to go out and prepare for an opponent, you play Saturday, you turn the page quickly. Sunday, your light practice, your corrections. You're off Monday, NCAA mandated day. Tuesday, you're back at it, and it's full game week. You're in a position now where you're trying to go back and do more work on South Carolina. You're doing this is, and everybody's correcting, right? Obviously, throughout the course of the year, you have a lot more to correct. You almost have to go back and work more on South Carolina right now than you even have to work on Kentucky, because if these things don't get corrected, you're not going to be able to go out and get many wins during the course of this schedule.
Well, and that's the things that are supposed to be done through spring, through summer, all this stuff leading up to the season, because you're right, once you get into the season starting, you're locked in on whatever opponent's coming next and adjusting to the game plan, installs, and all that kind of stuff. You shouldn't have to go back to the base fundamentals, which you work on fundamentals every single time anyway, but really having to drill in, hey, guys, here's how you tackle. Hey, here's how you line up to make sure you're not going to get penalized before the snap. Make sure you're communicating well. All these kind of things that shouldn't be a problem a month into the season are. And again, until you see otherwise, you're just going to assume it's going to keep happening.
Yeah, and, I think the unfortunate thing is, man, a lot, if not all those false starts, they were not what I would call road game environment false starts. There were several false starts to start the South Carolina State game, which was played in Williams-Brice Stadium when everybody's quiet when you have the football. So, what was a false start or two caused by, hey, Missouri's got a really, really good edge rusher on both sides, and I'm trying to get a head start. I think there was a couple of those in there, but, just not getting lined up quickly on the outside, not making sure everybody is lined up before you snap the ball. And I know if you're going to try to have a little bit of tempo, you're going to have a little bit of rhythm. There's kind of a rhythm to how you snap the ball as a quarterback, and you're kind of your job is to make sure everybody's lined up, but you're also anticipating that everybody's going to get lined up with a little bit of pace. Hey, let's have some let's have a sense of urgency about getting lined up and try to find a rhythm on offense, and then you feel like you're finding that rhythm, and there's that little beat of that half second where the guy on the outside is still lining up as you snap the football. And there's just a lack of continuity right now overall that permeates a good portion of the offense. And it is things that coaches would tell you are little things, I'm sure, when they really go back and watch the film. But those little things are currently all adding up to very big things.
A lot to get into from this game. Carolina falls to Missouri 29-20 on the road on Saturday night. We'll get some of your thoughts as well on the Firehouse Subs text line, as well as AAA Heating and Air phone lines at 803-404-6100 as your Reaction Monday rolls along here on the game. All right, welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris, and your reaction Monday here on the game. Looking back on Carolina's 29-20 loss to Missouri on the road over the weekend to drop them to 2-2 on the year and 0-2 in conference play. It is Reaction Monday. We want your thoughts as well. We head out to the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Jeff wants to weigh in. Jeff, appreciate the call. What's on your mind?
Hi, how y'all doing this afternoon? I'm calling in. It's a tough day, kind of one of those downer days, but in reality, when you look at this football game Saturday, in my opinion, it's even worse than how we're describing it. And I say that from the perspective that y'all talking earlier about the penalties and everything, and I truly do think that most of those jumps were because these guys were playing better football players, and they were jumping too quick because of that. And I think that's reflective in how many sacks they had and the net yardage. And even to add more insult to injury, I truly think that nobody mentioned this today, but I think if you were in the Missouri locker room today at their practice or whatever, yes, they would be celebrating a win to some extent, but it would be cut very short by those coaches saying that they're damn lucky. They didn't play that well. They should have annihilated South Carolina, and that game being that close is something they have to concentrate on. Carolina is shockingly. They just don't seem to have the manpower on the lines as we're talking about, and it was very evident Saturday.
Yep.
That's about it. Negative comments, but that's just how I'm seeing it. It's not good at all, and I can't see them in any shape, form, or fashion having any chance since any regular tier player, any regular tier SEC team. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate the call. 803-404-6100. And that is the crazy part of this. And credit to Missouri. That is a good team. Ahmad Hardy's a phenomenal running back. Again, we'll get into the missed tackles in a moment. But you were still in position to win this game. You were only down 26-20 with the ball in the fourth quarter on a couple different occasions before Missouri kicked that final field goal to finally put it out of reach. So as bad as you played on a lot of fronts, it was still a one-score game late into the fourth quarter that you could have conceivably still won.
I think both teams are probably, both coaching staffs are thinking that way. And, to his point, Eli Drinkwitz said after the game in his post-game press conference that, hey, when we go back and look at this film, I'm going to be all over some secondary coaches because we got guys running wide open, And, look, I think you always have to, if we're discrediting or crediting South Carolina for a lot of the bad, you do have to pick out some of the good. If you're scheming guys wide open, you can say, well, Missouri busted the coverage. Well, it happened a lot. So you're probably doing something right there. There just wasn't quite enough of it, and you were too reliant on those big plays. So, yeah, Missouri's probably thinking, well, we should have won this game by a lot more. South Carolina, on the other hand, is probably thinking, yeah, as poorly as we played in a lot of regards, if we just have a few plays that go the other way, again, a lot of self-inflicted stuff, then you might still be saying, yeah, we're lucky to win the game, but you might still be saying we win it. And, again, that goes back to the general point of the frustration. Was South Carolina outmatched up front? Yeah. They were outmatched in a lot of the games that they won last year. You had Sellers. You made enough happen. You had a run game, still. So there are some differences, certainly, between last season and this season, whether it's some schematic things, some personnel things. I think both teams, though, are sitting there looking at this thing and going, for Missouri, yeah, they won. That's the bottom. Like, in 2025, when you win a football game, you celebrate it, right?
Yep.
You don't – you care to the extent of you got to go correct the things even in a win or a loss or whatever. They're sitting there going, we should have won by more, but South Carolina's still probably going, we should have won. And we could still be sitting here talking about 15 to 20 missed tackles and not being able to run the ball and not being able to protect the quarterback and could still be talking about a win, if some of these other things could have been eliminated.
Yeah, neither side played particularly well. They're going saying, hey, much like, South Carolina outmatched in the trenches there, especially O-line versus Missouri's front, Missouri's going, hey, we didn't belong on the same field with their wide receivers or their quarterback. I think there was plenty, and that's kind of, to me, sometimes the beauty of football is you have all these different matchups that are going on simultaneously, and one side may have a clear advantage in one of them, the other side may have a clear advantage in the other. I do want to also say kudos to the caller for using his blinker. I could hear it in the background.
Yes.
One of my pet peeves, people that don't use blinkers. I think that was a GMC or Chevy truck, like tone. So kudos to him on that, and I appreciate the phone call there, man. I know it is frustrating, and yeah, South Carolina just has not played well to this point, and there probably is something to the jumps sometimes being because you're worried about that head start. Those are two really good edge guys for Missouri, but man, I also got to say, some of the pre-snap penalties are just because you were not lined up correctly at wide receiver, or the ball is snapped before. I don't know who the blame is on. Should the receiver have gotten lined up faster? Should the quarterback? Ultimately, it's on them to wait to snap the ball. I get that. But again, man, these have been issues at home against South Carolina State. And I promise you, South Carolina wasn't lining up saying, oh, man, we're scared of South Carolina State and their defensive linemen on the first drive of the game. So, yeah, to an extent, there's probably some truth there, but I think there are greater issues there that goes back to just attention to detail, man. Are they thinking too much, or is there too much going on pre-snap to where? Because typically, if you play any sport, when you make detail-oriented mistakes, can it be lack of focus at times? Of course, but most of the time when you make a mistake like that, it jolts you into, oh, no, I need to focus on that. But typically, why do you keep making that issue? This is throughout any sport. It's because you're thinking of too many things at once. You are going through so many different things in your head that you forget to do the little things, the fundamentals, the things you were taught, the things you've been doing since you literally first put on a helmet if you're an offensive lineman. So why is that happening? Nobody here has the answers, but I know that it has just been terrible for their offensive chances to lose 5 yards as often as they have on plays that are not taking place within the actual confines of the game of football. They're pre-snap.
We'll get into the missed tackles a little bit deeper on the other side. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West, Chris, along with you here on your Reaction Monday. Let us know your thoughts at 803-404-6100 on the game.
All right, everyone, let's tell you about our friends over at Integrated Media. As you roll throughout the rest of this college football season to keep up with all of the exciting action, you want to make sure that you have the very best setup that you can have at your home. Whether you're just watching in the living room, out on the patio, your outdoor kitchen area, if you've been thinking about that man cave, or if you already have those things and want to make some improvements, Michael, Nathan, and their team at Integrated Media can help you, whether it's upgrading your streaming so that you can have multiple devices inside, outside, no dead spots, no dreaded buffering on the streaming. You definitely want to avoid that. Or getting the very best in equipment in 2025 and beyond, they can help you with that. Televisions, they can source them for you. You don't have to go to the big box stores. They can mount it. They can install it. Sonos wireless speakers, great internet signal with no dead spots, and the very best in streaming. They can do it for you. IntegratedMediaInc.com or 948-8327.
I just say continue to keep trying to play complementary football. That's one thing that we preach, and I don't think that we really have done a great job of that so far. We have the keys, we have the players, we have the guys. That's not the case. That's not the issue. We just got to continue to keep just pressing hard and do what we do during the week. Just be consistent. Just had too many penalties tonight, things like that, things that we're not usually doing. And when you don't do things that you usually do, then you don't get the outcome that you want. So we definitely had a team. That's not the question, but just got to put it together.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris. On your reaction Monday, that was the voice of Gerald Kilgore, who did have a positive play on Saturday night with the interception, the lone turnover in the game for South Carolina. Though talking about not playing complementary football on the defensive side of things, particularly these last 2 weeks in losses, where last week, and these are pro football focused numbers, Carolina had 10 missed tackles against Vanderbilt and outdid themselves on Saturday with 16, which I think a lot of us thought was generous. Our guy Kevin Miller from GC did his own tally, and he got 21, which I think a lot of people may agree that's maybe a little bit closer to the number. Regardless, it was a lot, and there were just a particular couple of inexcusable ones. And we knew coming in, like, hey, Ahmad Hardy forces guys to miss tackles. Jamal Roberts had done that a little bit himself, but my goodness, it was like those guys were covered in butter on Saturday. They couldn't get those guys to the ground to save their lives at times, it seemed like.
Well, again, you came into this game knowing a few things. Number one, the scheme that Missouri runs offensively in the run game is difficult to stop, right? You knew that they had this 1-2 punch at running back led by Hardy, who has been one of the best in the country at breaking tackles. You knew that was going to be a challenge. You also, I think, had in the back of your mind that, hey, Bo Pribula can run, and they haven't really had to deploy that yet, given their competition level. They did at times. Sometimes that was him scrambling. Sometimes it was on some design runs. You saw the one where they had kind of faked the inside run and booted him out. He was able to get a positive gain there. So you saw that. All those were concerns going in. I think you had to know, hey, even if you play this thing pretty well, they're going to get theirs in the run game. But what you had to avoid was exactly what happened, which is, almost 300 rushing yards surrendered, a lot of missed tackles. If you miss a tackle in the box and it's Ahmad Hardy, gaining a yard or two or getting back to the line when you have him stopped in the backfield, that's one thing. But a lot of these were plays where there was a lot of extra yardage. We saw multiple extra yardage plays. We saw it appeared he was stopped, turned backwards, up in the air, and frankly, South Carolina should have done more to make sure he's on the ground. He wasn't, and he ends up scoring. Like, those are the things you had to avoid. So credit to them for what they did, but also you gave them way too much help in trying to slow them down.
Oop. Hold on. Got to get Wes back up going here.
Oh, we lost Wes.
Yeah, that's my bad.
No problem. I think it's even more painful in this game when you see what Missouri did, and you can't shake the feeling of like just the extreme discrepancy between the two teams. South Carolina leaving that game with -7 rushing yards. Yeah, that included sacks. But let's take out the sacks. The running backs had 11 carries for 19 yards.
Mm.
And then you look at what Missouri did.
Sure.
And so for Carolina, we've had a lot of questions like this morning on the pod. People are going, well, can't we just run the outside zone? It's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. You could say, should we have installed that in the offseason or something like that? You can't install it in the middle of Kentucky week.
Sure.
You don't major in it. But right now, South Carolina is struggling in every aspect to the run game, and you've got Missouri doing what they did on the ground.
And we got Wes back now. We were just talking there about the missed tackles there, and obviously we knew going into the week that was going to be a concern because Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts very good at making guys miss, but it was egregiously bad on Saturday, and they outdid themselves from the prior week, and this is per Pro Football Focus, where they had allowed 10 missed tackles against Vanderbilt, and according to them, 16 on Saturday night.
Yeah, and I think it is one of those things you do give credit to Ahmad Hardy to an extent. Like, you knew this was going to be an issue to an extent, but for the number to balloon that high, for the missed tackles to be just so devastating in terms of them turning into big gains. Even some plays there where it just felt like other guys on defense assumed that he was to the ground and he was not. And then if everybody continues to flow to the football, what still would have been a missed tackle, but maybe becomes a couple of yards, ends up being, a huge play. And I think just that's probably the most frustrating part, I'm sure, for the staff too, is that I promise you these things were talked about in review going into the game. And this guy was the number one tackle breaker in the country. So, in terms of knowing all hats to the football, in terms of knowing to wrap up, I felt like there was a huge lack of wrapping up. Running your feet once you do wrap up. That was something Beamer mentioned on Sunday. All those things were lacking for South Carolina on a bunch of plays on Saturday. And, credit to them. Like, matchups do matter. But, the second back goes in there, and he's a pretty good player in his own right, but he goes in there and is creating missed tackles at pretty much just as big of a clip as Ahmad Hardy. And, the other part, there's some plays there where Bo Pribula maybe doesn't get credit with creating a missed tackle, but in my book, there were some missed opportunities to get him on the ground that you were unable to do so as well. We saw the run game aspect of his skill set start to come out too, something that, we mentioned last week was there. They just had not had to rely on it yet either. So all of those things put Missouri in a spot where, they weren't terrible in the passing game, but it was not necessarily super dynamic either. They were not getting the big plays necessarily down the field like South Carolina was, but they didn't have to because they were just able to rely on that consistent running game. That's why you have a game where South Carolina averaged 5.9 yards per play in this football game. Missouri averaged 6.1 yards per play in this football game. Almost identical. The difference being because Missouri was able to consistently move the football and stay on the field and convert third downs, they had way more offensive plays in South Carolina. For Carolina, it is much more just sporadic in terms of 43 yards here, negative 13 there. And so then you're just relying on those big plays happening, and you love them when they happen. But, I mean, what better example of what we've seen than a 40-plus yard completion down to the 2-yard line in terms of setting yourself up for a chance to score and go up by 2 scores in the game, followed up by the big sack on the very next play, a big negative play that basically forced you to end up having to kick a field goal there. I maintain, guys, I don't hate the call. I really don't. The way South Carolina had run the football to that point, I would make I don't love the idea of running the ball right into the teeth of their defense, even if you're at the 2. I don't mind being aggressive and going play action there. But the execution on that play, just a perfect example. Beautiful deep ball completion on one play, huge negative play on the next.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that went wrong with that play. Obviously the blocking up front, and Faison kind of went at the guy's legs and let him get through, which didn't give Sellers a whole lot of time. But at the same time, Sellers and Beamer talked about it after the game that, hey, you got to get that ball away. Don't take that sack. Go back 13 yards and set yourself up in a worse spot where, again, an extra 4 points there could have been so valuable into how this game turned out there at the very end. But again, kind of a microcosm for how frustrating the entire game was on Saturday in a moment just like that.
Well, several elements within a play. We talked about this throughout the year. When a play fails, you inevitably go, "Wow, it's a play call." Sometimes it is, yes, and you can make a very good argument, hey, go run the ball. Now, you have the entire game to realize that, given what happened the rest of the game, well, maybe that was the right call. South Carolina wasn't running it very well, and you've got a Missouri team that's very aggressive. They're definitely wanting to stop the run in that instance. Maybe you had something on. If that hits for a touchdown or you throw it away and South Carolina ultimately scores a touchdown, nobody's really talking about that play that much.
Yeah.
But something bad happened. Well, why? You missed a block. You didn't throw it away. Shane Beamer pointed out that they didn't even run the route. If you want to get detailed and granular, they didn't run one of the routes as crisp as they should have, right? So we can go back to the play call. I think the other elements, particularly not getting rid of the football when you've got somebody in your face, those are the bigger problems, as it pertains to that play.
We'll come back, wrap up the hour, get some of your thoughts on the Firehouse Subs text line. 803-404-6100 as your Reaction Monday rolls along here on The Game.
All right, everyone, let's tell you about our friends over at Game Day Men's Health. If you're a guy out there who's been struggling with some unwanted symptoms like muscle loss, weight gain, if you have had trouble sleeping at night, find yourself really tired, not feeling like yourself, go get checked out. Game Day Men's Health. They have in-house labs, comfortable man cave style clinics where you can get your results in about 15 minutes or less, and a personalized attention to detail and your care. They're going to, again, give you your results in 15 minutes or less with their in-house labs. You don't have to go anywhere else. You can be nice and comfortable while you're there, and they'll give you a personalized consultation, let you know if what's going on, and if you may need any care. Conveniently located in Northeast Columbia near I-77 and Two Notch Road. GameDayMen'sHealth.com, or give their team a call, 803-265-3161. Again, that's 803-265-3161, Game Day Men's Health. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler Head, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark wrapping up your hour here on your Reaction Monday, and there's a whole lot of things we did not
even dive into for this game that we'll get into coming up tomorrow as we put some finishing touches on it. Nevertheless, a frustrating loss at the end of the day, and a lot of specific moments kind of coming under a lot of scrutiny. One being, and I'll go to the Firehouse Subs text line here, Mike says, haven't had a chance to rewatch the play yet, but in my opinion, Bennett took a bad route to the ball. Maybe he didn't see it right away, and that's in reference to it was about midway through, maybe a little more than midway through the first half when Sellers throws it from about the 45-yard line, had a guy right in his face, and it's far enough out where Mazeo Bennett has to dive for it, does get his hands on the ball, but doesn't come up with the catch, and that obviously would have been huge, helping set South Carolina up right there on the goal line. And I've heard both sides of the argument. Okay, that's on Sellers, that's on Bennett. What side of the equation do y'all fall on with that one?
I've watched it back a few times. And I'm trying not to give a cop-out answer, but where I kind of landed is there's a little bit of responsibility maybe on both. Wes, you feel free to disagree. I mean, first of all, it's wide open. Is a better throw more catchable? Yeah, I think you could certainly make a good argument and point that out. Did I also think that Bennett misjudged that ball a little bit initially? Yes, I also thought that. So in a complex game like football, at the end of the day, you may say, guy wide open, throw football, make catch, touchdown. Yes, that's absolutely true. But watching it back several times, like that's kind of the feeling that I can't shake, is just like, if he would have caught it, did go through his hands.
Yeah.
Wasn't like it was, 5 yards past him, and then you're going, okay, did he overthrow him? Did he misjudge it? Like, it was close. It would have been a good catch, for sure, but it did go through his hands. I kind of thought it was some of both. What did you think, Wes?
Yeah, same. Honestly, it is a cop-out answer, but I think it's the accurate reality, the non-radio hot take answer. I mean, it went through his hands, but let's also say his outstretched diving hands.
Yes.
So it was not an easy catch by any means. And, on the front end, was Sellers getting drilled as he threw? No. But was he getting pressured and having to deal with the possibility of getting hit and kind of rolling a little bit away? Actually did a pretty good job, I thought, of feeling where the pressure was coming from, but keeping his eyes down the field. And he put some air under the thing. That was the thing. I'd love to know when Mazeo picked up the ball and if he saw it right away, like just from his perspective. I think that would maybe give us an answer. Like, does he feel like he picked it up late or not? But one of – well, I said this on our podcast. This is a game where you are not in a position to win this game if not for the way Lenore Sellers played. Like, he made some NFL scout highlight, like your top – if you were putting your top 30 seconds worth of plays so far this season, and maybe for his career in terms of throws, the throw he made to Harbor on the sideline where he's rolling against his body on third down, I mean, NFL teams are going to eat that up. But there were also – and you can't expect your quarterback to be perfect. There's already so much on his shoulders, considering that he was pressured on over 50% of his dropbacks. There was no running game to speak of. He kept you in this game. Simultaneously, are there about 5 plays where you say he wants those back? And if you could give him one of them back out of the 5, that being one of them, it's maybe a different game. I thought he put enough air under the ball that you probably, when you throw it, you think Mazeo's going to run under it. Would he also probably say, hey, I want that one back just a little bit. Let me give one more shot at that one? Absolutely. Does he want that third down throw back on one of the fourth quarter 3-and-outs? Absolutely. Does he want the opportunity to throw the ball away on that first and goal from the 2? Absolutely. I mean, but when you're playing within the margins, right? Like when you're in these tight SEC games, that's what it comes down to. If Missouri had lost the game, they'd be saying, man, I want this ball back. I want that throw back. I want that interception opportunity back. That's just life in major college football. Unfortunately, the difference in being a really good team record-wise, and right now being 0-2 in SEC play, typically it's going to be a handful of games or a handful of plays within a game.
Well, and Sellers' ability when it came to throwing the ball the way that he did, because you didn't have a running game, is a large reason why you were in that game to begin with, right? And not that anybody's forgotten how good Sellers is, but that was a reminder of, hey, there's a reason why NFL scouts love this guy. I know Thamel did his polling of anonymous NFL scouts, and they still had Sellers as the best overall pro prospect, and he showed you why on Saturday night for a one-dimensional offense to, again, still be in a position to win that game late despite coming up short. A lot of that is on Sellers and his ability, and you hope that's not how you have to play games the rest of the year, but you are thankful you at least have a quarterback capable of those kind of things to at least give you a chance.
Yeah, last year it was, and Sellers made a lot of, he threw 5 touchdown passes in this game last year. So he made a lot of plays in the passing game last year, but a lot of the conversation in 2024 was the plays he was making with his legs. This year, it's been more of, hey, Sellers is making some big-time throws. So from that standpoint, a little bit of growth in the deep passing game, yeah, maybe so. But there are also a bunch of elements that you can see in the passing game where he has to continue to get better. Like, there's nothing negative. There's no downside to Sellers taking that next step in the passing game. He needed that. I think the needle that they're trying to thread right now is, how do you do that? How do you keep the elements that have been successful in the downfield passing game and just execute the basic a lot better, not going backwards, not making poor decisions, decreasing the pressure, decreasing the amount of especially procedural penalties that you're having? Those are the problems, and so it's kind of like they're stuck right now in between those things, and that's why we've seen this offense be so, frankly, feast or famine in these first few games.
We're just kind of scratching the surface. We'll dive into more details coming up tomorrow as we unpack South Carolina's 29-20 loss to Missouri over the weekend, dropping them to 2-2 on the season. We'll continue on with Reaction Monday. Up next, Bill Gunner makes his return to the halftime show. That is up next on your Reaction Monday here on The Game.